But we'll be discussing all that and more with Angela Minayo. She is the Program Officer, Digital Rights and Policy at Article 19. And we're talking about, the lessons we can learn, but more importantly, threading on, just a fact-finding mission of how bad the situation is to the best of your knowledge. But karibu, Angela.
Thank you so much. You know that news about Tanzania is very scanty right now.
Yes.
We are still not sure about how many deaths. But what we know for a fact is that there has been an internet shutdown that is on and off. So we can just say there is an internet disruption in Tanzania right now.
Right.
We also know that there has been an announcement on the winner being Samia Suluhu with around 97% of the votes cast. A very contested election. It has brought to fore certain fault lines in not just Tanzania's human rights track record, but I think also the continent. AU's response, for instance, was very underwhelming, in my opinion. And we're yet to get any, call for human rights, safeguards, and things like that, and more of just let's peace. There's almost a coercion towards peace and reconciliation,
right?
Without looking at, there is a contested election. Right. People have died. Should we have a re-election? Certain questions are not
band-aid fixes. Like I call them placing a bandage. And we'll talk about all of that and more. But just before we get into the conversation, we usually start off with a quote from Janet. She'll give you the quote of the day, say what it speaks to you, if you resonate with it, or if not, I doubt it, but let's hear it.
That would be nice. I don't resonate. Zoe Samudzi is a Zimbabwean-American researcher and writer. And in 2021, she said, "We must stop mistaking representation for liberation." What comes to mind when you hear that? Even in light of everything that's been happening of late, we must stop mistaking representation for liberation.
I think the top of my mind, and I know this sounds really bad, is we were really excited for having a female president in Tanzania.
We just said that actually, literally when we were starting the show.
And I just, speaking as someone who's done women rights for a while, I want us to contextualize Samia Suluhu's legacy, presidency, and human rights track record in a broader context. I don't want it to be used as a reason not to ever elect women because, I saw a TikTok yesterday saying, look at what's happening in Tanzania. They gambled with a female president and she's a dictator. And no one says the same remarks when male presidents do the same thing. But back to your quote, we really need to contextualize feminism, women rights, leaders, and all that. We still need to hold women leaders accountable, especially when such grave human rights violations are at play. We can't wave this is not the time or place to talk about gender. It's serious.
It's about justice.
And just bad leadership, bad leadership.
Regardless of, because it's about the values. But I think for me, it's also a chance for us to say that we've had a female president. It hasn't gone right. So what does representation look like going forward? It makes us very granular. We're not just looking for a woman leader. We're looking for a woman leader who happens to be a woman, but she holds the values and progress that's needed.
That's true.
But we're going back to the internet shutdown. And earlier, Mariam and I had given her data, and the source is something that I'll go back to. But it seems there's been tons of internet shutdowns since 2023. The data I looked at said 120 or so, could have been from different parts of the world. Tell us about internet shutdowns, how they work. She made a really good example. She's like, is it a button? Is it a lever? Is it like a control room?
A shaft that you just...
Yes.
I didn't think this is where this conversation will go, but I'm
we can start there and then progress
then that's a good starting point. So we look at, as a digital rights practitioner, we look at internet shutdowns quite broadly. We look at any form of internet disruption. So sometimes it will be an app. So like Uganda doesn't have access to Facebook unless you use a VPN. That is still a form of an internet disruption. There are times where the speeds are throttled. So you need 10 minutes to open a WhatsApp message.
That sounds familiar.
You cannot log into your emails. I think that happened sometime last year when there was a cable issue with the African internet infrastructure. And so I remember being in Zanzibar and I was not able to open my emails, and I just closed my laptop laptop and was like, you know what, it is never that serious. But it's sometimes just playing around with the speeds. That is a form of internet disruption. And then there's the total blackout. And the total blackout it's not a switch, unfortunately. For an internet shutdown to be done, there has to be compliance from the telecommunication operators. So in an ideal scenario, it will be maybe a court order, like a well thought out decision that this is what, but we know that internet shutdowns are done in a very ad hoc way. Normally when governments feel threatened, or sometimes it's an overreaction. I'll give you an example. So in Kenya, we've been having Telegram being turned off anytime we have national exams. So this started, I think, in 2023, and then they did it in 2024, and then we were like, okay, wait, there's a pattern here, where in November, chances are very high Kenya's Telegram access is going to be tampered with during national exams. So under international human rights law, we call for a 3-part test when considering limiting freedom of expression. So you want it to be prescribed by law, at least there has to be a law sanctioning this. It has to be a legitimate aim, so you need to look at why are you limiting freedom of expression, and in this case, why are you shutting down the internet?
Right.
The other thing you need to look at is whether there are other least restrictive ways to achieve the same aim. So for instance, if national exams are an issue, maybe we need to look at what is the least restrictive way. The Kenyan version is a bit less restrictive because it's not shutting the entire internet, but just one app. That's another way to look at proportionality.
Right.
But it's still affecting so many other people who had nothing to do with exams. So just anytime we see limitation of rights, think about those 3 tests.
Parameters.
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
I hope I'm not confused you.
You've given us like a good insight into what it takes. I want, with Tanzania specifically, what would it take to shut down the internet? How many, for example, internet service providers are there? Were there court orders? I know there wasn't, but let's pretend to follow due process, for example. So how many ISPs, and then how many ISPs would you have to shut down, essentially to shut down internet across the whole country? Because you could have one, but there's other people with a network. What does that mean for people with VPNs as well? And then we'll get into now the actual impact of these shutdowns from a safety perspective, from just an operational perspective for everything, from an economic perspective. But how many ISPs exist? Ideally, what would it take? Is it a phone call? It should be an order or from the court, but hapa kuliendaje? Likely. I know it's
likely. I have to caveat that we don't have enough information. We have a few people in Tanzania, but they only told us once the internet shutdown happened. And the guys who measure internet shutdown, so we have NetBlocks, we have Cloudflare, we have Uni, already started showing the traffic data. So showing that, okay, from this point, there has been there's a way the graph shows the internet connection has been tampered with. We don't know exactly how it was done because, as you know, everything is, of course, there's always the national security reason, especially when there are protests. But in an election scenario, I will not advise an internet shutdown because already it's a contested election. We're going to have less information about what's happening. And then what happens? Rumors, gossips. And even worse is when people's actual lives are at stake and we cannot offer the help that they need because we don't have a way to reach them. So I will answer you that I will not come and pretend that I know what happened in Tanzania, but I can tell you for a fact that we know it was very ad hoc. And if we follow the 3-part test I've laid down, you'll agree with me that is an overreaction. I think there are other ways to try and control the protests without necessarily shutting down the internet. Around economics of an internet shutdown, we know that a lot of digital e-commerce is a thing now. Many businesses are done online, but it's not just about the businesses done online. Think about the banking system. Think about the whole financial backbone that is, done through communication and networks are needed. So it's beyond just the cost of the e-commerce. I want us to think broadly, not just what do you do on Facebook Marketplace and things like that.
How do you communicate?
Yeah, it's how do you communicate?
Because
exactly.
WhatsApp is essentially a means of communication. It's a business platform. Yes, it's a means of communication, internally, externally, all of that. Even from a transport perspective, I think, I don't know if you follow Anyiko, yes, Owoko. She happened to be in Tanzania at the time of the elections, and then the internet shutdown happens, and there's just no way for her to retrieve, you know, her information, no way for her to book a ticket back home, no way to do anything of that sort. And she managed to get out, but she posted about a boarding pass written online that literally anybody could get on the plane, because there's no way to, again, you need the internet to be like, passenger Janet Mboko. And then you get a little piece of paper that says
boarding pass.
Boarding pass.
3C.
That's essentially.
It's such a security risk.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, there's data here that says Tanzania's Communications Authority claimed it was a security measure.
Yes, it's always national security.
It's always a security measure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a world where there's a justification
for an internet shutdown.
Before we continue to look at the scale of impact.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you have talked, I like that you mentioned the 3 tiers, because it gives justification.
Yeah.
But over 30 countries, I think, in Africa have used internet shutdowns, even though condemnation persists. I don't know how it's still happening.
Yeah.
Is there any case that you've seen, whether in Africa, whether beyond, where perhaps internet shutdown was justified, or should there just be a different approach to managing information or misinformation widespread?
For me, my biggest concern around internet shutdowns and disruptions has always been the process. And in most of these cases, the process is, as I've said, ad hoc. So it's, I don't like what's going on, shut down the internet. There's a conflict here, and I think we can't control the information online, shut it down. There are other ways. If the information is your problem, you can easily censor a bit, you know, for a few hours. An internet shutdown sometimes is perennial. We've seen internet shutdowns go months, like in Ethiopia, months. People are locked out of networking and internet for months. So the process, to me, has always been very problematic. Even in Kenya during the Gen Z protests, they claimed it was a cable cut, but it was very much of a coincidence that the cable cut just happened. You know,
around the protest,
around that time. Exactly. So
it's the how.
For me, it's the how, and I'm yet to see a how that meets the 3-part test. Most of the time, it's an overreaction. Most of the time, it's a way for the government to control the flow of information. But national security does not mean a threat to the government of the day. National security should actually be actual national security. Like, I need facts, I need statistics, I need you to tell me Kenya's cyberspace has been infiltrated, compromised. We need, you know,
and in essence,
it's never that way.
Has been infiltrated several times, but there's never been a shutdown. Right, we have been hacked. E-Citizen itself, the platform on which every government service sits on, has been hacked.
Yes,
but no internet shutdown.
No internet shutdown.
But yes, coincidentally, protests happen, and then there's a throttling, and then we say it's a cable, allegedly. I'm thinking through how the people of Tanzania are still managing to get communication out. But even before we go to that, I wanted to go through, we've gone a little bit of, the economy is even hard to fathom.
It is hard to fathom and hard to measure.
Yeah. But from even like a healthcare perspective, from basically a human rights perspective as well, what does the internet enable as far as keeping human rights in check, you know, keeping regimes in check?
A few years ago, if you asked me this question, I'll have struggled to explain to you how access to the internet is a human right. Because that was like 10 years back. It was not considered a human right. And then the Arab Spring happened, I think in 2011. An uprising from social media. Then from that point, how we look at the internet and democracy changed. Even before we get to human rights, how we look at internet and democracy changed. We started holding platforms more accountable, asking them to do a bit more in terms of protecting freedom of expression, safety for women and marginalized groups and all that, because we saw the role that the internet plays in a democracy. It is a town hall of sorts. It's a public information place. You can imagine most presidents, most ambassadors have an X or something that they used to actually convey, you know, information, critical information as part of their work. So that question will have looked different 10 years ago. Now, with the level of digitalization that is going on, it is very hard for me to talk about human rights and not talk about access to the internet. E-governance has been embraced by most countries, and that means that I need the internet to file my taxes. I need the internet to open a business, to register it. I'm a lawyer in Kenya, and I need the internet to file a court case. That's how integrated it is.
From the basics.
Yes. So it has completely changed our lives. And therefore, access to the internet is no longer a luxury. It's not a token. It's not an elitist thing for the few. No, at this point, it is just a necessity.
Right.
So it is very much connected to other rights. Freedom of expression, for instance. And freedom of expression is not just for you to speak, but also to access information. And so an internet shutdown really tampers with both. You cannot access the information and you cannot express yourself. It has helped us to realize some social economic rights, social protection now being streamlined. I know that the National Council for Persons with Disability now moved to a digital format for, giving them the numbers, and just services are being accessed. Like, it's not, I need you to understand.
It's so vital.
It is not, I cannot talk about human rights and not talk about the internet.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not a privilege.
No.
It's a right.
No, it's
And
a
I think
right.
at some point, we will learn about the scale of impact, whether it's in health services, whether it's small scale traders, whatever. I feel like at some point we'll begin to hear that. It's hard to measure it now because we don't have information. I just wonder what regional safeguards exist to stop this from happening again. Also, I just think it's highly bizarre that you would choose an internet shutdown in a wildly digital age. I think it's so counterproductive because now we all know, the world knows there's an internet shutdown. I'm like, that's what you are avoiding. Now
the world knowing that you're a
the
tyrant.
world knowing that you're
But
exactly.
if I can make a comment.
Yes.
I think we forget how intertwined offline, human rights track records can actually tally, or you can actually look at a regime that is very undemocratic and then a looming internet shutdown. It is a straight line. So Tanzania was really on a very shaky path. There was a time YouTube was blocked, X was blocked at some point, journalists were being disappeared, people were being abducted, and it is a cycle. This does not just happen out of the blue. You don't just wake up one day and have an internet shutdown. Normally, it is part and parcel of a dictatorial and undemocratic regime. It is part of their toolbox. It's part of the toolbox. So it didn't just happen
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue. As someone who has been looking at Tanzania for a long time, I can tell you this did not happen out of the blue.
The red flags were definitely there.
Yeah, they were.
We saw them.
Yes.
You hope it doesn't happen, but we saw them. Again, when it's now day 5. Oh my, have I counted correctly? From Wednesday, actually.
Yeah, from Wednesday. Today's Monday.
Today's Monday, of an internet shutdown. Does that, are we waiting for a swearing in? To the best of your knowledge, what is the plan? Is it to have those long-term shutdowns like you've mentioned in Ethiopia? Is it to have a swearing in that is also basically in the darkness and then resume normalcy? I don't know. I'm trying to think through.
So I've told you that the reason for an internet shutdown in contexts like this is normally to stop information flow.
Yes.
So you're not able to verify. You don't know if it's 700 deaths, if it's 10 deaths, if it is 100 deaths. Believe it or not, these statistics are appearing in different news sites. So that is already part of it's achieving the purpose, unfortunately.
Yeah.
To cause confusion, to cause misinformation. We don't know if, are these things true? There's no way to prove it. So I will tell you for a fact that until she feels comfortable that it's not looking very bad, she might actually proceed with this shutdown, because it is meant to serve one purpose and one purpose only: to close Tanzania from the world.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
What it is, yeah.
It's not national security. It's, I don't want scrutiny, so I'm going to shut
down the internet.
Yes.
Janet asked a really good question. Are there any safeguards that exist from a national perspective, and even an individual one? Because from an international, national, and then personal perspective. Because I genuinely don't know how one would safeguard themselves against an internet shut, as long as you're not the person with the big red button in your office. So, metaphorically speaking.
I have very bad news. I'm sorry. So Kenya is part of the countries I look at, and we're very much looking at something similar. And I can tell you why. So we recently passed the Kenya Computer... Sorry, I'm veering off, but I'll get to it.
No.
We recently passed the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment
Act.
Bill.
Yes, it's an act now.
It's an act now.
Yeah, it was signed.
Section 6 of the act has been amended to include the power to render inaccessible a website or a software when it is deemed to be having content that is unlawful.
Yes.
So before then, we didn't have any provision for an internet shutdown in our legislation. If they were going to do it, they will claim the national security thing. They will never have claimed that we're doing this under section, you know. Now they can actually say we're doing this under section.
Okay.
I say the signs are there because we've had a run-in with an internet disruption last year.
Yeah.
So just
The part if you join the dots.
let's go back to Tanzania because I want us to start.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Before we get that,
Okay.
the wording of that law, you can render a website unusable,
Inaccessible.
sorry,
Yeah.
a website
Or a software.
or a software.
Yeah.
Does that encompass the internet?
Yes.
To me, that felt targeted. It felt like
Yeah.
X, Facebook,
TikTok.
No.
Either way, I think it's a bad
Of
precedent.
Of course.
It's a bad precedent because software is very amorphous. It covers most things. It's
Yes.
software. Google Chrome is software.
True.
And inaccessible means... I
Exactly.
mean, unless my English has failed me, I think inaccessible still has the same meaning. So, give or take,
Same.
giving that power to a body composed of military generals should worry you. Yeah.
Angela, I know you were going to continue with your trail of thought, but we're going to take a break.
Okay.
You know, Angela has just said something, and I feel like I've gone a bit cold because, no, not you. You're doing the Lord's work. It's okay. You're fine. Like imminent patterns. It's very frightening.
It's hard not to see them.
Yeah.
So when you see people talking about like the amount of misdirection that has happened around the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, and we discussed it at length with Okia here, and then there's also the question of do we focus more on the privatization? Is that more dangerous? And I'm thinking through exactly what she said. We're seeing red flags,
Yes.
so we can't afford to be to be distracted. However, there are challenges to it in court. Now, whether those will hold up or not, that's a whole other question.
But it's something that, we'll come back because I also want to find out what can advocacy groups, how can people be prepared for an internet shutdown, as wild as it sounds. You know, now that this is such a reality in our time, what does it look like to be prepared for an imminent internet shutdown? Anyway, we'll come back with Angela Minayo, Program Officer, Digital Rights and Policy, Article 19, Eastern Africa. You'll tell us a little bit more about that as well.
Okay. Well.
It's coming up to 8:30. We'll come back and continue with that conversation. But we are back in studio with Angela Minayo, who's a Program Officer, Digital Rights and Policy, Article 19, Eastern Africa. We're talking about lessons from Tanzania elections as regards the internet shutdown. Angela, tell us a little bit about Article 19, Eastern Africa.
Sure. So Article 19 is affiliated with the global Article 19. It's a non-profit established in 1987. We're headquartered in the UK and we have several offices across other regions. So I work in the Eastern African office. We get our name from Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which speaks to access to information and freedom of expression. That is our mandate, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was just wanted to draw it. And then before the break, we were talking about, and maybe I've jumped ahead, about getting ahead of internet shutdowns, if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about the Keep It On civil rights group, the hashtag Keep It On, and whether there's anything advocacy groups can anticipate. Because it sounds like with Keep It On, and you were telling us briefly on the break, it's about observing and issuing press releases.
Yeah.
Is there any way to get ahead beyond press releases? Is there anything advocacy and lobby groups can do? Because it seems that internet shutdowns will be imminent, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
So, how does one get ahead, prepare, think through
Sure. So Keep It On is a campaign run by Access Now. Access Now works on digital rights. And Keep It On is a coalition of civil society organizations across the world. And they work on making sure that internet shutdowns don't happen, but they do happen. And when they do happen, we issue press releases and sign just telling the government to, respect human rights, freedom of expression, the usual, and to keep the internet on. Advocacy on internet shutdowns is not very strong because by the time there's an internet shutdown, it's a bit too late.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have warning
signs
releases.
Warning releases.
Yes.
Okay.
So ahead of Tanzania's elections, for instance, Article 19 did a press release saying we know you're going into elections. We've seen some bad things happening, some human rights issues coming up, and we're asking that at least respect human rights and democracy. Of course, they might not, but it's always good to document. What can civil societies do, or even just people do in terms of going ahead?
Yeah.
So the first thing you want to have on your phone is a VPN. No matter what, always have a VPN, because a VPN will allow you to connect to a different server if the servers in your country have been disconnected. I think those of us who were during the Gen Z protests saw that you could, connect to the internet on VPN, but you could not on the local.
On local.
Yeah, you could not. The other thing is to keep monitoring. So there are various apps you can use to monitor internet traffic. So I use Uni. Uni is OONI. It's a mouthful, but it's an internet observatory network, and it helps you to track so that you can note if there are any disruptions. Remember me telling you that internet shutdowns are not always just like blanket shutdowns. Sometimes it's an app. So you with Uni, you're able to actually track and see, okay, are there any particular websites that are being blocked right now? And you're able to see.
Are speeds being throttled?
Yes, exactly. Because when I go to the next point of going to court, you need to have proof. Right. And you need to at least show that, okay, we know that the shutdown happened from this time to this time, or this website was blocked from this time to this time, and things like that. And so with such apps, you're able to generate this data. Of course, Uni is an observatory group, and you can always reach out to them in case of, needing someone to go to court, to testify, when you need experts and things like that. I think it's something that they can work on together. I think that has been my experience with the internet shutdown case we filed in Kenya against the internet disruption we had during the Gen Z protests.
How is that going?
So we're still in the preliminary stages. We haven't yet got to the merits, but so far there was a conservatory order that was issued barring the government from interfering with internet connectivity. But then the Computer Abuses and Cybercrimes Act happened. The amendment.
Right, the amendment.
Yeah.
And again, but there is I think there's two court cases challenging.
Right now there are three.
Okay. 3. Hoping at least one of them is successful. Now the conservatory orders hold.
Yeah.
It's good that we are in a place where we can issue conservatory orders and we can go to court to challenge this and that. But now I'm thinking through places where the constitution may not be that strong, either that or it's completely ignored, or there's just no structure to help. What are the other ways, aside from a VPN? Are there alternative internet service providers, I would call? Like if I got a Starlink, is that a fix?
So Starlink has been a bit political because of the honor. So ultimately, whenever companies feel pressure to comply with government orders in order to operate, they're willing to, most of the time, comply, whether it is legitimate or not. And part of our work has always been to try to talk to telecommunication companies and ISPs, at least to explain to them about business and human rights principles, trying to tell them that you don't have to, just comply with all orders, at least follow the 3-part test, even in how you handle government requests, because they're normally government requests. And of course, just weigh in. For instance, it is very suspicious that during an election, the government wants to shut down the internet, right? I mean, you should look at context. It should not just be national security, the law enforcement has said this, we did it. It should not be mechanical. Yeah, we are trying to ask them, and we've had some very fruitful deliberations with some of them. And we're hoping to train the corporate muscle to push back, because I told you that an internet shutdown does not work. The government has no switch. It actually needs compliance.
And collaboration.
So it doesn't just happen from nowhere. Of course, the worst case scenario is when they go to the cables. Now that is a whole other story, because you know that the internet infrastructure is from the cable, the sea, and then from your internet service provider. So if they go straight, then we now need to talk to the IXPs. I think they're called internet exchange points.
Right. And now, that would not be localized internet shutdowns. That would be damn near global.
So
because
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Sometimes a country could be hosting the infrastructure for especially landlocked countries.
Yes.
So for instance, Kenya's internet exchange points serves other countries other than Kenya. So I think Uganda, because it's landlocked, Burundi, Rwanda. And so when we interrupt with the internet here, like the Gen Z protests, internet disruption did not just affect Kenya.
Right.
It affected the other countries that share the IXP with us. So you can see how, you remember me talking about proportionality, whether it's just an overreaction. That's what I was talking about. That sometimes you can actually tamper.
Now you're in Burundi, you have no business
because
with
Kenyans are protesting.
Now suddenly you have no internet.
Oh my.
So I wanted to bring that out, and thank you for bringing it out. Yes, sometimes we host, especially landlocked countries, because they're not next to the sea. They most of the time sometimes have those services from the other countries that are next to the sea, and so you need to have like a regional approach to these things. The internet is very much connected, so to speak. Yes.
Internationally now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, we think of the international bodies that are meant to be safeguarding human rights, and digital rights are human rights.
Yeah.
What role do they play in all this? What pushback do they have, possibly, if any? We've seen a lot of toothlessness, to be quite honest. Is that any different for digital rights? And
I wouldn't
for
say
internet
it's
access?
toothless, I'll say it's soft power.
Oh, okay.
It is soft power. So I've just seen the African Commission of Human and People's Rights. So that's like the African human rights body. They have just issued a press release just now on Tanzania. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
Yes. So, of course, obviously calling for human rights. Release on the human rights situation in the United Republics of Tanzania. It's extremely concerned by reports of, a series of election protests and all that. It is soft power because states actually have to report to these bodies. So every year they have to issue reports on the human rights situation of their countries. So for them it's just a shutdown, but this is going to be a question in the next cycle.
Right.
So it is soft power. It's the same thing for the Human Rights Council, because they also have a peer review of state human rights reports. So I won't say it's toothless, I'll say it's soft power. It has its limit, but it plays a role. Same for the ambassadorial positions normally shared, especially by the EU. Of course, again, EU-AU relationship. So it's sort of, hey, we don't like what's going on. Can you do something? It's soft power. There are repercussions to such. Travel advisories are also very things you don't want your country to have. And already I know that United States and the UK, I think, have issued travel advisories against Tanzania. Already it's sending a signal that you're an unstable country. It also can affect your economy because, it means maybe commercial interest might take a backseat in light of. So
the pattern I've seen,
soft power.
The pattern I've seen is that it doesn't seem to deter.
No, it doesn't.
Not of late. I think there was a time when implications meant something.
Yes.
I don't see that. So I'm sure she'll say, that's great. Shame, we can't travel and you can't. That's fine. I'll move on. And so I hear you on soft power. I hear Mariam on toothless because I think it remains to be seen. Let me put it that way. Have we seen any pushback on digital rights for Kenya? I may be asking an obvious question. I'm wondering if Angela, I'm trying to see what repercussions have been felt in Kenya based on what happened last year so that we can anticipate what repercussions could really be felt from what happened in Tanzania, and that could be a warning for 2027. From what you've seen, because you've been in the thick of it, are there any repercussions that you feel Kenyans have borne the weight of it because we interfered with the internet during the protest, or have you not seen anything?
We have lost credibility as a democratic state in the Eastern African region. Before the interruption in 2024, we used to walk around saying that Kenya has never had an internet shutdown. Yeah, we used to really use...
You really have to hold your tongue from saying could never be.
Yeah, so right now, I'm sorry to say this, you are in the same category with Uganda and Tanzania, which we were not in. Which we were not in. We are seen as a human rights risk now because of the abductions, especially the cross-border abductions. So already the human track record is not great. I'm speaking from my work, my sector, and how we are seen to the world. The credibility, the governance we were so proud of, the 2010 constitution, and all that, is really down the drain to some extent, just because of a single decision during a protest. A decision that should never have happened. Already the protest, the deaths, the use of force and all that. So it does taint your image. But back to your question, I think human rights is in crisis. I'll be lying to say that we're only seeing this in digital rights. I think we're seeing this in several other rights. Article 19 has a report we do every year ranking human rights across the globe. And at least half of the world population is living in areas that are repressive. Half. 50% of the world is living in some form of draconian rule that does not allow free expression. So that should tell you something. So it's the toothlessness is not just in the African continent. I think I'll be lying to say that this is an African problem.
We've been seeing it. We've been seeing it in other, but the 50% is
staggering.
It's very staggering.
It is staggering.
And then where do we go from here?
That would be the next question, right? The fixes in terms of strengthening systems now, because to be fair, we may not be able, we could VPN, but again, you need a smartphone. You could try and find, alternative internet service providers, but really the fixes need to be structural, right? So for us, let's start with the East African community. What fixes exist to sustain digital rights and basically keep them at the forefront and prevent things like internet shutdowns?
So, as you all know, the East Africa Community Treaty is not necessarily a human rights treaty, but there's a section on good governance that we have always tried to use to ask for better human rights compliance across the region, seeing human rights issues as a governance issue. But I still think that it comes down to national laws also. The three countries have very repressive cybercrime laws. And for some reason, this is a strange coincidence, they're all called computer misuse. They have the same title. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. We're very united in doing bad things.
We've talked about that before, actually. It's muungano. It's jumuiya when it's for terrible things. When it's economic, partnerships, cricket. When it's solidarity and creating like an EAC where we're borderless, cricket. But when it's time to do big nonsense,
the bad things. So cybercrime laws are still seen as tools for the government. I don't think we look at cybercrime as a way to protect the cyberspace, really. If you really look at our cybercrime legislations across the regions, they're really just offenses and some investigative procedures to make sure that they can get the data when they need it, and really doesn't, have the safeguards from a human rights point of view. Kenya has a good constitution, Tanzania and Uganda not so much, but I still think that civil society organizations have a lot of work to do in this region. Countries like Kenya that used to enjoy certain guarantees, we're just not sure about that anymore. And that means relooking at some of these institutions. As much as I work in digital rights, I'll be lying to say that we can work on internet rights on alone. No, you need to work on democracy institutions, you need to work at the judiciary. It's a holistic approach, because I've told you, Tanzania, we saw it coming because
all the other indicators were there.
Yes, all the indicators were there, and Tanzania has always had a bad track record when it comes to digital rights. They are the first country in Eastern Africa that tried to regulate social media influencers and content creators, and like had hefty penalties. It's that place.
Right.
Let me just say that, for lack of a better word.
That was another headline that we've seen recently.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is, what country do you require a degree now to be an influencer?
I think it's Dubai.
It's Dubai. Yes, it is the
And
UAE.
now I've seen a member of parliament in Kenya saying
Yes,
that they want
proposing.
to table a similar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
Yeah.
Some of these legislations, because I was wondering, are they meant to be distractions, honestly, or is it an honest push that someone believes in? For example, when you come to parliament and you're saying, you know what, to be an influencer, you need a degree. I think China and the UAE actually have very similar laws, but theirs are for professional subjects,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
you can't be pushing medicine
Yes,
online
if you're not a
if you're not a doctor, or
Medic.
at least have
Or
some
medic, yeah.
form of qualification there.
Yeah.
But when you think of things like this, are they distraction tactics, or are they actually something an agenda that is being pushed by someone, or is it just to kind of get us away from this Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act or privatization and things like that?
I think our approach to tech regulation broadly, and not even Kenya alone, but most
The world.
governments, we really miss the mark. I think the backbone of a good regulation of social media will start with governing platforms themselves, not necessarily the users.
Okay.
Right? So if you look at our act, our Cybercrimes Act, for instance, nothing about obligations for platforms or tech companies, but a lot of obligations for people. But that is not how the internet works. Will you arrest 100 million people for 10 million people for fake news? And you can't. It's not practical.
Yeah.
But you can help or work together with the platforms to, regulate better. So when you see such reactionary, they're very reactionary, right? It's, we've seen this country do it, let's try it here. They're not contextualized. What do we need? We are yet to get monetization for TikTokers, and you want to regulate them. You want to tax influencers. They don't have monetization for certain platforms. Right. What are you taxing? You understand? So create a conducive environment first, and then talk about these things. I feel you cannot create obligations when you've not done anything from your end. It is very backhanded, or what is the word?
Yes, I agree with that. And we've talked about that before, even from especially the tax perspective, which is you're taxing what you haven't built yet, right? Because you need to give something some meat first of all, and then you can start taking your chunk of meat. But when you think of best case scenario, use globally, countries that have done it right as far as digital rights are concerned, and what we could borrow from them. I know the EU and the GDPR, we copy pasted that.
Yes, we have.
So our data protection is it's solid-ish. Then from there, expanding digital rights, where else have they gotten it right?
I think they've gotten it right in terms of the EU Digital Markets Act and the EU Digital Service Act. So you'll hear of the DSA and the DMA. The DSA, of course, is for platforms, services, online. If you're offering any online service, and they have a tiered obligation for different players. They're very large. Online platforms have different set of obligations from the smaller ones and things like that. So that's what I'm trying to say. You need to have the obligations somewhere. You cannot wake up and say, today we want you to have offices. Then the next day, we want you to remove hate speech. Then the next day, it's not coordinated, it's ad hoc, it's depending on the government of the day. And businesses naturally will not take you seriously if that's how you operate. They respect laws. So for instance, when you go to X, they have a transparency center. They have different reports for different countries depending on the laws of those countries.
Right.
So for instance, India and I think Brazil, they get their own reports every 6 months on how they're mitigating human rights, safety issues, and all that. 6 months. Because it's in their laws. So platforms will comply with the law.
So
but
you
they'll
need
not
to
comply with the whims of government.
With the whims of government, because it has to be. Charles Ndungo says, we lost it at 2013, electing people who opposed the 2010 constitution into the highest offices in Kenya. What were we really thinking? They were never going to allow it to work. But now
That's
that we're here, we've had to, we are now reconciling.
Now that we're here.
Now that we're here. Yes. That was a good question on best case scenario. I'm still really trying to figure out how to get ahead. It's a tough one because
what systems can we throw? You know what? Let me put it in the general way.
Okay.
Like, because how can we strengthen the system then to buffer, to have buffers against digital rights violations?
Yeah.
And potential shutdowns, because I get you. It's how to protect you. It's top of mind. It's right here.
It's right here because it's coming.
I think
it's
we
imminent.
need to be vigilant.
That's good. Yeah.
Remember we were talking about the warning signs. 2024 was a warning. That was a rehearsal of sorts.
Yeah.
If I don't want to sound alarmist,
No. Yeah.
But I understood that to mean that the Kenya that I used to know and the Kenya I live now are different. This is a different government. Kibaki never switched off the internet. Moi never did that. This guy did it. That should tell you something. Vigilance means when you see a problematic law, you go to court. You don't wait for them to apply it so that you can see how it's going to work. You know what I mean? You've talked about the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. Yes, there are 3 cases in court. I love that about Kenyans. I love that. I love it. In fact, 10, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
It is okay. For this one, it is okay. Let us fight these things in court before they play out. In 2018, I think, 2019, we went to court against the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. Like, several provisions were being challenged for unconstitutionality. Unfortunately, we did not win that case. So we appealed. It took 5 years for us to get the judgment of that appeal. So the laws we are appealing are being amended before we get the judgment. So I hope I'm putting that into
context. You've still not gotten the judgment?
No, for the appeal, not yet. And we filed the appeal in 2020.
Wow.
So 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025.
And we're amending...
We're amending that law.
That still has court cases.
That still has a court case.
Yeah, that tells us what we need to know.
So I want you to understand that court is good,
yes,
but it has its
limitations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And time also is not on our side because they say the wheels of justice turn slow, but they turn. But either way, justice delayed is justice denied. Again, we are 20 months to an election, so we need to be very cognizant of that. But thank you very much for spending the morning with us. We do have to wrap up and get into the next hour. I would just ask, like, you've given us platforms, Oni app for looking at, for of course, your internet
monitoring,
traffic, and VPNs just as a safety measure, and of course trying to bolster the systems to make sure that digital rights are enforced. We have them on paper. Let's keep them in practice, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Angela Minayo has been in studio with us discussing digital rights and of course looking at Tanzania and fixing from there and trying to figure out how to protect ourselves as well within the East Africa community. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. We'll be right back after this discussing negotiated democracy. If you haven't heard of that, it's basically handshake things, but clan. Tutaongea in just a minute.